Good evening, Cheeseheads, and welcome to the Cheese Room podcast, the Cheesehead podcast. I'm joined this evening by two illustrious guests. Firstly, I would like to introduce making his Cheese Room YouTube debut, no less, Dave, David, whatever we want to call him. How is Sydney today, Dave?
Sydney is good. Unfortunately, we have gone into another lockdown. So it's a winter's morning here. I think it's going to be blue skies, but delighted to be on YouTube. If anything, to show my kids that I have been on YouTube, which they like watching KSI and the Sidemen all the time. But looking forward to chatting all things Tottenham in the next hour.
KSI ain't got shit on us, I'll tell you that now. And also joining me, pretty much as ever, he is the Cheese Room HG.
Yeah, I didn't really catch much of that, so I may have to change my my headset in a second. But yeah, it's great to be on the show again. Football's going to happen tomorrow. Yay! I miss it when I need football to think about, and I care about the Copa America. So even if that's going on a bit, but yeah, life is.
Yeah, you are breaking up a bit. I think you should change your mic. So we're going to dive straight in. So the show tonight is all about Nuno. Nuno has been obviously ex-Wolves manager. Nuno Espirito Santos has been linked with the Tottenham Hotspur job very strongly in the press. And we are going to talk everything about it tonight, from his tactics, his strategy, what players he might sign if he does join Spurs, and a little bit about, do we want him? So if you're watching the Cheese Room for the first time, please do a couple of things for us. Click the subscribe, hit the like, and absolutely remember, super chats are running tonight, so you can also access all of those. We appreciate your support. Do make your voice heard in the comment box, and we'll try and get to your comments during the show. So Dave, making your Cheese Room video debut, let's talk Nuno. Are you happy that we're being linked so strongly with him?
He's a manager. I think he has an ability to organise training sessions. I think he has an ability to select a team. And I think he's got his coaching badges. So the answer to that is yes. I think we've descended into some kind of 1970s, 1980s English sitcom farce. Whoops, where's your manager gone? And we need one. Pre-season training starts next week. So I am happy there, and we'll get into this. So the short answer is yes, we need a manager. He's got Premier League experience, and then I'm sure let's dive into it a bit more.
HG, same question to you. Are you happy with being linked with Nuno? We've been around the houses somewhat, Spurs fans, over the last however many weeks. But are you happy that we are being finally linked with a manager? It looks like he's available. We want him. He will come to us. Are you pleased with that?
As we've seen in the last 4 weeks, he's available. He looks like we want him. Look, yeah, I agree with Dave a little bit. I mean, Nuno is an exciting name for many Spurs fans, but I don't think it's a bad appointment at all. I really don't. So if it happens, yeah, I mean, he probably wouldn't have been my top 5 at the start of all of this, but he's got Premier League experience. He has done a very good job at Wolves. I don't think there's any doubt about that. When you really look at the numbers, yes, they've had some backing, but yeah, you go into it and you think, okay, he may not be the sexiest name available, but he's going to do a better job than Mourinho did. I don't think he's going to fall out with the players, which was Mourinho's biggest failing, really. So you have to think it's an improvement. I mean, if it happens, which I won't believe it until I see him, I don't know, holding up a shirt at some random motorway station on the M1. Who knows when it will happen? But yeah, it's better than nothing, because I don't want to see Ryan Mason again. Please, no.
Well, the odds of him becoming the Tottenham manager are shortening faster than Matt Hancock's career right now. So we shall see about that. So tactically, Dave, what do you think of Nuno's tactics? I mean, I don't know how much of Wolves you've caught of it. Obviously, my dad is a Wolves season ticket holder, so I hear about it probably on a daily and weekly basis. What do you know of Nuno and the way he approaches the game and his team approaches the game?
I think that up until this last season that's just finished, I think he played 3 at the back with 2 wing backs, with of course the illustrious Matt Doherty on the right hand side. He beat us 3-2 at the Lane under Mourinho, I think the season before last. So he played quick counter-attacking football. He's got Traore. He had Raul Jimenez, who unfortunately got that awful injury, and he had Jota as well. I'm not quite sure why they sold Jota to Liverpool. Maybe his contract was up or something like that. So, of what I know of him and what I've seen of him, he got Wolves promotion in the first season of asking. He, for 2 seasons, Wolves finished 7th, 2 seasons running. He got into the quarterfinal of the Europa. I was reading that article in The Athletic this morning about him from the point of view of that last season, that they finished 13th. I think the break between that quarterfinal of the Europa and the start of the season was very short, obviously in the global pandemic, etc., etc. And then he switched it, I think, to a flat back 4, and he changed it slightly, and it didn't quite work. But I think that lots of people are we really going to get into this debate of this? The Jose Mourinho and the 18 months there, everyone is walking around like they've been in some kind of abusive relationship for 18 months and how awful it's been. And and now we must see attacking, free flowing football. Let's get our Diles famous 5 in and all that kind of stuff. There's a balance here. I look at Nuno and then I compare him to what else are we looking at? Fonseca, Gattuso, Steven Gerrard, Graham Potter, and also let's do a comparison of Poch at Southampton as well, because we got Poch because Louis van Gaal went to Man United. Okay, so I think that's what you've got to benchmark it against, and I don't have a problem with that. If we play counter-attacking football and he plays with the wing backs thing, and you got Reguilon and Doherty, and he'll probably get a tune out of Doherty. I haven't got a problem with that.
Well, he's not known for his fast-flowing attacking football, like, say, the sides that are superior to us right now in the league, like Liverpool, Man United, City. He's known much more for sort of suck it up and hit on the counter. So there are elements of Jose ball in his locker. And what we also know, don't we, HG, is that Nuno used to play for Jose Mourinho. So the two share a really sort of close relationship. Do you think it would be like Mourinho Mark II?
No, if I'm honest. Like I see the note that Matt Hayes put in the thing. I'll just stick it up on the thing so everyone can see it. Yeah, I mean, I get what the Wolves YouTuber is saying, that he's a carbon copy of Jose, but he's not, because he doesn't fall out with the players. The players love him. That's the big thing for me. Like, I don't mind defensive football if you attack with a plan, but if the plan is just hope that your 2 best players can do something, then that's not a plan for me. I don't mind having a balance between defensive football and attacking football. We all know that Wolves, when they were very good, they got results against the big teams. It was actually, I think they lost twice to Huddersfield one year. So it tends to be the other games that we might have an issue with. But if we're not playing 3 at the back in those games, we might be able to do more. I think that if he's really good at playing those bigger games, which, to be fair, we've struggled with, even when we were really good, we struggled in the bigger games. I don't mind it. I really don't. Like, we've got the players to play 3 at the back. I do believe that. We've got some wing back options. Maybe people like Sessegnon, who, like, they're not really a winger and they're not really a fullback, so it would suit him to play that way. There's a lot to like about that formation, because I don't think that Nuno is going to go with the 4 at the back that he tried at Wolves. I think he tried it mostly because he wasn't able to get better players. At Spurs, you'd like to think he might be able to get some better players in. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like Ruben Neves follow, because I think Wolves want to sell him this year. I don't know what that would mean for the midfielders that we already have, but still, like, you can sense that there is some kind of plan to it. But those games when we are at home against, let's say, weaker opposition, where we might be expected to dominate the ball, that might be an issue. But I don't think it's anything that he can't learn. I mean, these are all things that you can coach, and like you can get someone in to do those things. So to me, if a manager is delegating a lot of things going on, and the players like him and will play for him, then we're not far away. So I think when the more that you look into Nuno and what he did and how he's done it, there are things to like about it. I do worry that maybe maybe he's not the type of manager that will take us to where we really want to go. But right now, we need to be just getting the best out of our squad, and I think Nuno could help do that. Certainly, do it better than Mourinho did.
Well, he certainly gets every player on the bus for Wolves, or he did get every player on the bus for Wolves, I should say. And it does, I mean, very much appear that his last season at Wolves was, in fairness, absolutely injury ravaged. So it's not really fair. I think, where did they finish in the end? 13th. I don't necessarily think it's fair to draw conclusions like some Spurs fans appear to be doing on if you read Twitter. That it's a massive step down for us, and he shouldn't even be considered, because he actually over delivered probably the 2 prior seasons. Would you say that's fair, Dave?
Yeah, I do think that's fair, and I think that let's be pragmatic about this appointment, because I see this appointment, let's say, as a 2-year thing. So I would say, as a realistic target, by the end of the season coming up, we've qualified. I hate to say this, but we're in the Europa League places. And then in the season after that, he's got us into the Champions League. And I think that if Kane isn't sold this summer, which is looking likely, then we plan for the fact that Kane is sold at the end of his first season. And that's what we do. I think all that we want to see is we're playing attractive football. So I haven't got a problem, soak it up, hit him on the counter-attack and fast-flowing football. He's got a history of improving players. I mean, he made Doherty a player. Connor Cody, he massively improved, and Traore as well. And we get some decent cup runs out of it, and that's what we do. I mean, next season is a rebuild. I think the interesting thing will be, I'd like to see him play 3 at the back with wing backs. I think that suits Reguilon, and I think that suits Sessegnon. And also, I think that also Doherty as well. And I think you could put Ben Davies as a left centre back, as long as he doesn't fall over like he did against Antwerp away. But then where does that leave when you got the wing back system? Then you've got your Bergwijn, Mora, and HG and mine's favourite player of all time, Eric Lamela. Because you either play them as wing backs who don't defend very well, which you could possibly do, or you get rid of them. And then with Son, who plays on the left-hand side, might have to play him as a proper second striker up top with Kane. The only thing that concerns me about this is the whole Jorge Mendes thing, because we got Fernandes the cheaper as opposed to Bruno Fernandes, and we also got Carlos Vinicius, who's very similar to me as a player. I only had 1 foot, and that was on my left side, but obviously not as good as Carlos.
Well, I mean, Mendes is an interesting point, and it's one that I've put on my run sheet. I want to talk a little bit about that. So I don't know how much you know about Wolves transfer business, but they pretty much exclusively signed Mendes clients during Nuno's time at Wolves, and they've continued that by their new manager, who's also a Mendes client. His name escapes me, so forgive me for that. HG, you got it on the tip of your tongue, have you?
Yeah, his name is Bruno Lager.
See, this is why you're here. I'm the colour, you're the class. Absolutely. And we've got a recent history of Mendes clients. Are we suddenly becoming Wolves light, HG? What's going on?
Can't we be like large Wolves? I don't know. Honestly, I don't love the idea of it, but I don't hate the idea of it either. It's not as if he's some middling agent. I mean, Mendes has a lot of very good players. Not as many as you think, weirdly, but earlier today, I looked at the list of players that are at his agency, and I started to think, okay, well, we need a goalkeeper. This guy could come in, and we need a right back. Maybe this guy is going to come in and do it. And there may well be upgrades. If Mendes has this way of moving his players around and getting them through the system, where it doesn't cost teams a fortune to do so, then it could work in Spurs' favour. If Mendes can, if you park someone at Fiorentina for a couple of years, Fiorentina do well out of it, and then they sell him on for not for a market price, but a price that they're okay with, and the player gets to move through the system. It goes up a few levels. It might work in Spurs' favour. Look, I don't love the idea, and I don't want it to only be Mendes players, but for us to have an inside track doesn't seem too bad. I mean, Doherty going from Wolves to Tottenham was an upwardly mobile move. That's what he would have wanted to do, even if he's an Arsenal fan. What we stopped doing was playing with one attacking fullback, which we'd done the previous season. So you start to think, well, again, if we're getting players in that suit the system, that suit what we want to do, then why not? Maybe I'm being positive here, but it's still. I don't think we need to be massively negative, because it's not as if he has bad players on his books. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't have bad players on his books. I just don't like the idea that we're completely dependent on one super agent for all our signings. It just seems to me a little bit of a backward step.
I don't think we'd be completely dependent on it. I mean, Bergwijn obviously isn't one of his. I just someone like Vinicius. Like, granted, he didn't come up and play extremely well, but he never got too many opportunities, and usually in the games where he played, he did all right. If you're looking for bodies, because I mean that's what Fernandes the weaker was. He was the body that we needed when people like Sissoko were injured, and we were about to spend, even before COVID happened, we knew that we were pretty just beset with injuries. So again, I don't mind the idea of it. I just don't want it to be only what we do, and I don't think it would be the only things we do.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but at Wolves, one of Nuno's philosophies was to keep a really small squad, really small, sort of brotherhood almost. Like, everyone played for each other. It was a really tight knit group, and I wonder if that's one of the things he would want to bring to Spurs, because it would be sort of contrary. I mean, at the moment we've got an enormous squad. It really does need trimming down. Dave, can you see a smaller squad working out? Because I think Wolves only had something like 22 players or something at one point. Barely enough. What do you think about that?
Look, I think that there's, amongst the three of us, we could probably name about 11 players who we'd all like to see the back of, but unfortunately we do need to have a 20, what's the restrictions? You need a 22, 24 person, 27 person squad. So there's a load of players we'd like to see the back of, for sure. I think that we're in a situation here that he can, you got to look at this. Okay, we've got the Mendes clients will come in, but don't forget our other transfer strategy, which is Steve Hitchen and French players beginning with the letter N. Okay, which is, and I'm sure there's more to come in that regard. So if I compare Steve Hitchen and the letter N, Jorge Mendes and Gedson Fernandes, who was probably the Stefan Dalmat of this decade, versus another, I'd prefer that to Hitchen.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, if you look at the signings that Wolves has made, like, I think Daniel Podence is a decent player. I mean, he looks a bit too much like Eden Hazard, but I think he's got quality. Pedro Neto has clearly done really well for him. They had a guy who actually, he was at Wolves for a couple of seasons and never really made the breakthrough, but went back to Portugal and is now in their squad for the Euros and was the best player in the Portuguese league last season. So, like, if you're getting first dibs on these players, then it could work out. I mean, I think we've seen him do this, like, in England, we only know about it in the last couple of years. But, these players were going out to Olympiacos in Greece. They were going to Lazio in Italy. It's not that strange. And I don't know. It's just, if they fit how we want to play, if they fit what we want to do, and it's good for the player, then that's okay. And, like, if it's a small squad of 22 players, well, that just gives more opportunities for the academy prospects, which for some reason Spurs fans are now so keen to see come through. Because we had Kane do it. It's all about opportunities. I think personally that academy prospects need to go and take that opportunity somewhere else before they come back to Spurs and can prove it. I don't know if other Spurs fans see it that way, but to me, that's what should happen. And so, yeah, if we've got a small squad, then those players that do stick around and don't go out on loan are probably the next one up if we have a couple of injuries in a certain position. So, yeah, like, I think in many ways he does tick a lot of boxes, but it's the trophy one that he doesn't, because obviously he's not really won anything, certainly not in a top 5 league. And for Spurs fans, that does appear to matter quite a bit, especially when Antonio Conte was available and has won a whole lot of things, and we just haven't, we couldn't get that deal across the line.
I'm having a crisis here. My beer's nearly empty, so I'm going to have to walk off and go and open another bottle. I've got some knockoff Aldi Peroni, which is very amusing. I got. I want to leave you two while I go and scoot and do that. Ilana,
right.
who is one of our fantastic. Oh,
sorry.
One of it's you, isn't it? HG is one of our fantastic people who watches us very regularly. Should we be wary that Everton and Palace haven't touched him? Dave, I'm going to ask you that whilst I go and refresh.
Should we be wary? I'm not wary about it at all because Everton. If Nuno has had contact made with him and he's looking at he could be looking at three different options here: Tottenham versus Everton versus Palace, right? So out of the three of that, we have got a form of European football, albeit the very nice under 12s league or whatever we're in. We've got European football. Obviously, we have that lovely, shiny new stadium that we all like to talk about, which has been financed by a debt facility. But we're not here to talk about ENIC, okay?
We can come on to that at the end. I know there's a lot of people watching this, including Matt Hayes, bless him, that would probably agree with you on your views, and we'll have it out. We'll have it out. Don't you worry about that, Dave. I'm always good for talking about that, but carry on.
Okay, so I'm not fussed about it at all, actually. Palace haven't touched him. Well, okay, Palace haven't touched him and Everton haven't touched him. Look, we got pre-season training starting in a week's time. And as I said at the start of this, compare this to Fonseca, Gattuso, Gerrard, Potter, Southampton. It's a pragmatic choice. I think we've got to go with it.
HG, what was that other comment you popped up that you wanted to discuss?
Well, I talked about how Mendes has been moving his players around, and I think Phil Ambrose made this point that obviously Wolves spent basically the money they got on Diogo Jota, they spent it on Fabio Silva, who was 18, so he's super young. Obviously, he didn't come in and play like the superstar that you might expect for £35 million. So I can see where Phil is coming from. I actually think there is something about Fabio Silva. I don't know whether it was working as a number 9, which is what he had to do pretty much once Raul went down with the fractured skulls. But it's. When I was looking at the players that Mendes does have, the younger ones, there's the Portuguese under-21 goalkeeper with a big future. He could easily come here and be backup / replacement for Lloris if it works out.
Can I just say, just on Fabio Silva, he's a very talented player, and my dad bangs on about this all the time. They haven't seen the best of him consistently, so he thinks he is absolutely going to be a player. Watches him week in, week out, and he's got all the talent in the world. So whether it's just a case of he's a bit young and they've overpaid for how old he is another question. But I don't disbelieve my dad. He knows football pretty well, so I'm going with Papa Caller on that one.
And I mean, you can look at when Ronaldo signed for Man United, it was 12 million, which was back then was a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And the first year, okay, he's young. Second year, I don't remember him really doing fantastically until maybe year 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So certainly not the player that we now know Ronaldo to be. So I'm not saying that Fabio Silva is that good, but yeah, I agree with your dad. Like I've seen things where I think up here, he's all right. He just needs to understand the English game, needs to understand the Premier League, which is clearly more difficult than the Portuguese league. It's a very generic Portuguese name, Fabio Silva, but it may just work out. So, I think that if Neves was to make the move, or even Pedro Neto, which would be a really good move for Spurs if he became available, it could work. I just think that it does feel like the game is going that kind of way, where it's connections that are going to get you things more than anything else. You see, what's happening with Haaland. And the fact that he's going around Europe with his agent, trying to drum up interest here, there, and everywhere.
That's his job, though. That's the agent's job.
Exactly, and I don't necessarily have to like it, but we have to accept that these are the rules we're playing by now. And again, talking about being defensive, I don't think anyone can look at Thomas Tuchel and say that Chelsea are super attacking. They're not.
No.
They win games 1-0. They're extremely organised. They stop the other team from scoring, and they tend to nick a goal. That they beat Man City 3 times 1-0 within the space of 3 months.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I don't want to be I had a season ticket during Ozzy Ardiles' reign. I don't really need to see that. Yeah, it was nice to think that we might score, but there were plenty of games where we didn't, and the other team scored a patful. I don't want to see that again. I want to see plan, and I want to see us, feel like we know what we're doing. If it's 3-4-3 in games that maybe we want to dominate, and 3-5-2 maybe if we want to be a bit more defensive, and you change the type of midfield players you have to make it work, I'm okay with that. That's all I ever really want to see, is an idea that our manager knows how he wants to win the game and understands that every game is different, and it's not going to be the same 11 that will work every week. And we don't want it to be like that. We want to have a strong squad that we know that, with maybe 18 or 19 players that we trust, we can get the result.
Okay. If you're watching us for the first time, please do hit the like and subscribe button. Is it an issue that Mason and King are still going to be on the coaching team, Dave?
Oh, I mean, Ryan Mason, I just think it's such a poor lack of judgment that he's photographed going on holiday with the Kane and Dyer families. I mean, what does Joe Roden have to think about that? Seriously. I think that Levy, it was classic Levy PR. Okay, I'm going to sack Mourinho 5 minutes before the League Cup final, so I don't have to pay him an extra £2 million in a packet of crisps, and I'll get in the player who, very unfortunately, suffered an awful injury, has naturally our sympathy for that, and he's a Tottenham boy, came up through the ranks. It's classic Levy PR move. Okay, so that's that one. And Ledley King, he doesn't strike me to be the most vocal of people. He doesn't strike me, I thought his job was an analyst. I thought he was looking at the iPads and the laptops and all that kind of stuff.
He certainly wasn't teaching defending, was he?
No, but the thing was, I mean, I think he was the analyst. I don't think he was a coach per se. But if we remember if you're trying to get the Zagreb debacle out your mind, there was that shot of him at the end of the game where he looked close to tears on the bench. So if you've got people like Mason, he goes back to the under-23s, fine. If you keep King on with the iPads and all the rest of it, I always think that when you've got a new coach coming in, he should have at least one or two people who are connected to the club and part of the infrastructure to help him learn about the club and the way things work. I mean, the classic mistake David Moyes made when he went to Man United is that he sacked everyone left, right, and centre, brought in his mates, and it didn't work out well. So they'll be around and about. But, if Nuno wants to bring his staff in that he wants, and I think Levy will only let you bring in 4, won't he? Then I haven't got a problem with that.
And you, HG, do you think there's any issue with that?
I want to see the best people in the best jobs. It would be lovely if they had a Tottenham history, but I'd much rather see Martin Jol come in and do these things and teach them about the club than Ledley King, because I agree with Davo. Like, it's every time I've heard Ledley King speak, it's I'm bored within 10 seconds. I don't want to listen to it. Ryan Mason spoke really well at press conferences. That's great, and I do believe that he has maybe a better connection with the players, but he's still so young. I mean, I'm over 10 years older than Ryan Mason. So it doesn't seem right that he should be there, certainly even in a first team environment. Let him learn his ropes at a lower level, at the under-18s, at the under-23s, whatever. But I just think that to basically say these people are the future of Spurs, when, I mean, really, they've shown nothing to prove themselves apart from the fact that they both came through the system. And Ledley King played a load of games for Spurs, but Mason didn't really. It was only really the one season that he was anywhere near the first team with any regularity. And then he got moved on. So I don't know. Like, I get the logic behind it, but I don't. I want the best people in. That's it. That I don't really care about history. I don't care who they used to manage most of the time. I want the best people available.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you something a little more dark. I would describe it as a little bit dark. So the Spurs fans got no to Gattuso trending last week on Twitter. You know what's coming, and there may be some good reasons as to why. So Gattuso's comments on women, on race, and various other things are abhorrent and not something that Tottenham Hotspur Football Club should be ever associated with, in my humble opinion. So I understand that. However, this week people have been, and it did trend again in the UK, the hashtag No to Nuno. Dave, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to get you to UHG because I can see you want to say something very, very loud. Dave, what is your view on this? Is it social media gone mad? And should the board really be listening to Twitter trends? And do you think that they did listen to Twitter trends with Gattuso, or was that all a load of nonsense?
Well, look, I've got an absolutely massive social media presence. I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. I've got, 10,000 followers minus 9,950 set to private. So, I've got, social media is an interesting thing. I think I'll, stereotype here that maybe the majority of people who put the no to Nuno are of a certain age where all they've known is Maurizio Pochettino and qualifying for the Champions League 4 or 5 years running, and have a heightened expectation of what the club is. Whereas if you're an old person like me, and I think I've got a good at least 10 years on you.
How old are you, Dave?
I'm celebrating my 50th in October this year with Danny Minogue as
I've got to
well.
be honest, you don't look 50.
Well, it's the Botox and the filters. It's all going well.
I look 50 on the other hand.
Yes,
maybe
you do.
Yeah, you do.
Yes, you do.
But the no to Gattuso, fair enough. I mean, his views on all those different subjects that you've highlighted are abhorrent and not something that we want part of representing our club. But the no to Nuno, I mean, it sounds like your spoiled younger brother who's chucked his toys out the pram. Let's get real here. We need a manager. He's got Premier League experience. I think the board did listen to the fact of no to Gattuso, but I don't think they'll listen now. And look, I think by all accounts, this is Paradicci's choice, and we need to have the director of football choose the coach.
Yeah.
That's the way it works best. Our history is we had Pleat as the director of football and Hoddle as the manager, and they didn't like each other, and that stemmed from the time that Pleat dropped Hoddle when they were the manager. Comolli and Joel didn't get on, and so therefore this is what we need to do. So, the no to Nuno, I personally think if we want to organise ourselves properly, it's more about Nick out, which we'll get onto later.
HG, no to Nuno. What are you saying?
What I want to see is a hashtag that's yes to someone, right? Like saying no to everyone. Well, yeah, great. That took a lot of skill. So you don't want this guy for various reasons, and you don't want the next guy for various reasons. So who do you want? Right? I mean, if Spurs fans think that they have a say and they think they have a right to say what they think, then start doing those hashtags. Say, yes to Conte. If you really think he's the best choice for Spurs, and there are a lot of people who do, then fine, do that and try and put pressure on the board to spend the money it would need to get him, or to even to get Conte back interested again, because I don't think he is anymore. That's the situation. The idea of just saying no, yeah, it is pretty childish. I mean, like, our job as supporters is to support. We may not agree with it, and that's fine. And we can say that we don't agree with it. But at the end of the day, you're making everyone's life more difficult. You're making it more difficult for the person who is chosen to succeed. And that is deep down what I hope we want us to do. We want them to succeed. We want people to turn around and say, yeah, you thought I was crap, but I'm actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But we don't need to put that pressure on them in the first place. Like, again, none of us sitting here probably had Nuno in our first 5 options, but when you think about where we are as a club and the mess we're in, right, when it comes to building a squad, when it comes to deciding how we want to play, when it comes to whether we want to do things the Tottenham way, which means attacking football and losing, or if we want to do something different, which might mean winning, because again, like, attacking football doesn't always win. It might make it interesting, and you might get value for the hundreds of pounds you're putting in towards the club to watch the games. And yes, it is preferable, but again, I would take boring football and a victory over attacking football and a loss. Now, obviously, I don't want to see that every week, but I would still take that. If there was a plan behind it, I'm okay with it. We are not going to outplay Man City. We're not going to outplay Liverpool. We never did under Pochettino. So I don't see why we would think that we can do this now. So it's just about making the best from the resources that we have, and that's where we need to go.
I've got to say, I think if the fans think that getting no to Nuno trending is a good idea. I think that's disgusting. And if the board listened to it, then more for them really, because we'll get onto the board shortly, Dave. I'm sure you've got more than two penneth to chuck in on that. I want to just clear something up here. Stuart says I thought the caller was in his 60s, and a work colleague of mine, Parveen. Hi, Parveen. Shout out to you. Watching tonight, and when she heard that comment, she said, "You're in your 60s, aren't you?" Which, quite frankly, I used to like you all. So tomorrow that this white beard is coming off, I'm going to show my baby face. I'm not 60. I'm 39. God damn it.
This does feel like a bit of a Benjamin Button, because Dave looks the youngest of us and he's the oldest, and you look the oldest but you're the youngest. Maybe going to Australia or getting out of England helps people stay young.
I think that's absolutely true. I think that's probably true, Dave, isn't it?
Well, I had a Nuno beard last year during lockdown. As like an actor, I was resting between jobs last year for a period of time, so I grew a Nuno beard. I've only had kept it in tribute to our new manager.
Well, there you go. Paul Anderson says, I don't know why Spurs don't just pay 5 million compensation for Harry Potter. I know who you mean, Phil and Paul even. And absolutely, I would take Mr. Graham Potter any day of the week. Yeah, absolutely. So if not Nuno, then who, HG? Who? What are we saying?
Well, look, I mean, I think I've been one of those, whether you want to call them hipsters or whatever. I always like the idea. I always like the idea. Quite, it's the beard, my crappy little bum fluff beard. I've always been a fan of Potter because I've seen what he's done with the players he's got and the way he gets Brighton playing. I don't think Brighton are massively attacking, but they play it on the ground and they want to play it the right way, whatever that means. And so, if that was ever an option, then I would have liked to see it. Obviously, there are plenty of people in the cheese room that think that would have been a terrible idea, but I don't see it happening, and I don't blame Potter for not really wanting it either. So, I think that given where we are, given the fact that we are a bit of a shambles, that it'll take some time to right the ship. That those better, younger coaches are not interested in Spurs. If Spurs were. I mean, it's like even when Pochettino came in, we had a bloated squad, and he had to get rid of five players pretty quickly before he could then start working with the ones that actually wanted to be there, wanted to play the way he wanted to play. I don't think Nuno necessarily needs to do that. I think we'll be getting rid of players based on contract and age rather than attitude. But still, Potter probably would have been my choice. I also liked a guy in Germany called Oliver Glasner, but he's moved clubs already. So right now, if it's not Nuno, I don't really know.
Yeah, I'd have gone with Potter. I'd have had Potter with Ragnick as the director of football. Okay, and now as a go, Paradici, this seems to be Paradici's choice, and that's really important. Potter, I think he did a good job with a Swedish part-time team that he took to the Europas. I'm not interested in any of this stuff, but his XG last year was very good. What was XG mean? I know it is. I think,
guys, look, XG is not a load of bollocks. It just gives you an indication of the type of football that they play, the type of chances that they concede, the type of chances that they create, how likely they are to take them. It doesn't mean that you will, and it doesn't mean that opponents might. You might give an opponent a shot from 25 yards and he finds the top corner. But the point being is that everyone talked about Pochettino and how that season when we had a goal difference of plus 60 and were the best goal scorers in the league and one of the best or joint best defenses. Part of the reason was teams didn't shoot against us, and the reason why they didn't shoot against us is because we played in their half the whole time. I mean, that was it. It's not as if we had a massive. I don't know how to explain it, but the basic idea was you can't shoot if we're playing in your half. Now, Brighton don't play that kind of high press, but they are still able to control things and stop opponents from shooting. They had a crappy Australian goalkeeper for half the season, which was a massive problem, and they never had a decent striker for the entire season, which was the other half of the problem. But everything else looked all right. I mean, it's an underlying statistic, but it doesn't prove that you're going to be good. It just means that you are capable of creating a unit that is actually decent at doing the things you need to be good at, which is attacking and defending.
Oh, well, at long last, I've now found something that we can disagree on, because we unerringly find myself and HG, we agree on a lot of stuff.
I mean, we're
And at long last, you know, I've been involved a little bit in coaching kids teams. My son plays for club side. I'm now the linesman. That's what I've been relegated to. I don't see him at half time. The coach comes off and goes, "Oh, your XG's great. The way you're running around the area and this, that, and the other." You know, when you get in the car after the game, you sit down and you think about the result. You're in the pub. I don't know anyone who talks about the XG. We've either won, we've created chances, we've scored goals, we've let in goals, we've gone home.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're saying you're creating chances, you're basically talking about XG. Like, if you know you go in at the end of the day and you say, like, we created a lot of chances, but we didn't score many, that's basically XG for Brighton. Or
XG.
the other team didn't have many chances, but they put 3 in the net. That's all it is. It's just putting it in a numerical form, because for many people, like, you don't really remember like patterns of play over time. One game is just one game, but if you are consistently good at doing something, it will show. And so, like, I don't love the statistic, I don't live by it, but it's just another way to analyze the game.
It's written by geeks for geeks.
So Sydney's in a bit of a lockdown at the moment. We're allowed to go to the supermarket. So if I go out to the supermarket this morning and accidentally walk into the window of the supermarket but don't actually go in, is my supermarket XG high? Is that how it works?
Depends which window pane you hit on the way in, I suppose, doesn't it? If you hit the sliding doors, then you're going to get a better XG than if you just walked into the side of the building.
You are much more likely to go inside a supermarket if you're standing outside it than you are if you're sat at home. That's basically it.
That's the XG, is it?
Basically, yeah.
Right.
I mean, XG is a wonderful stat for people who love stats, but for people who actually like to watch games of football, you know, possibly not so much. If you're watching us for the first time, do please like and subscribe. Really helps us out. Super chats are running this evening. There are lots of people watching this, and I think we're going to move on to a little ENIC debate, because I know Dave, purely because Dave wants to get this off his chest, and this channel is apparently pro ENIC, according to a lot of people. I personally love thinking that we are not pro anything and we're quite neutral, and there needs to be a balanced debate. So if you're watching along, get involved. Do send a super chat. That will guarantee you get your comment read out. If not, we'll try to get as many as we possibly can through this next bit. So we'll start off with a comment, and I suppose you'll have to defend the statement, Dave. This leave Ian ENIC out is wishful thinking. Ever will happen. No one will take over this club. We are in generational debt. You alluded to the debt earlier in what you were talking about. Do you want to have that conversation now?
Sure.
What are your thoughts on it?
Okay, so it's 9:43 p.m. in the UK. It's 10:43 in Vienna. So what you'd like to do is just to keep the feed on for the next 8 hours, and I'll just sit in a darkened room and rant about ENIC. And then when you wake up in the morning, I'll still be here, and that's fine. So ENIC. Okay, so a few things here. We had a big ENIC discussion after the Zagreb debacle, so I just want to address a few things here. When ENIC took us over, I think we were 11th or 12th in the league. We weren't going bankrupt. That was when Sugar took over from Scholar, and I still don't think we'd have gone. I don't think the Midlands Bank would have ever foreclosed on us. Okay, so we were not in a bad financial position when Sugar took us over. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is this debt facility. So whoever buys the club, in my humble opinion, will not have to come in and pay off the debt. The debt is, I think, in the name of the club. So if our debt is, I don't know, 1 billion, whatever, 1.2, I don't know what it is, they'll come in and they what was that comment?
Do you want me to invite? No, it's all right. Do you want me to enlighten you as to what the debt is?
Yeah, I mean, the debt. I mean, the last time I looked at the accounts, I thought we owed about 600 mil, and that didn't take into account the Bank of England thing that we just paid off. So we are a club in debt. we have basically got a debt facility for the funding of the project, which I think what you mentioned last time is not only the stadium, but also the Tottenham Hotspur's Sheraton Travel Lodge Hotel, which I'm looking forward to a night in when I eventually come back to London.
The Hilton, actually, but yeah.
Yeah, because when we were all kids and our family said to us for the first time, do you want to watch Tottenham play? We all said, yes, can we go and see the hotel as well? So as far as ENIC, as far as I'm concerned with ENIC, and it's not just the Super League. What makes me laugh about ENIC, and everyone's just woken up to the fact that Levy's got to go and ENIC's got to go because of the Super League. No, I've never liked them. From their first decision to sack George Graham 2 weeks before an FA Cup semi-final, and bring in Hoddle 5 days before an FA Cup semi-final. Sounds familiar. That's true. You look at Levy, look at all the appointment of managers that we've made, which is Levy's decision. Out of all of them, the Parthenon of managers that we've had, and I hold up the Spurs official comic book history here. We've got Harry Redknapp, who we got in because we were going to get relegated, in case he reminds us, 2 points, 8 games. And Harry Redknapp got us in the Champions League. Martin Jol, because we thought Santini was going to turn Tottenham into France, and instead he turned France into Tottenham when the previous Euros was a shocker. And he went, and we got Jol in because he was there and he was Arneson's choice. And then the other one was Pochettino, who, according to that well-known historical source, Wikipedia, had a 38.33% win rate, which Nuno's is better at Wolves, by the way. So he's got 3 managerial appointments right out of 12, of which I'd say 2 of them are lucky, and the third one was a good appointment. Okay, so that's his decision-making there. We've had directors of football, Arneson, Comoli, he always reminds us that he was involved in buying Luka Modric. We never hear him talking about Gio dos Santos from Mexico. Remember him? Or the Gilberto, possibly the worst Brazilian player ever to play in the Premier League. And then we had Pleat, who always reminds us about Dele Alli. Amazing that everyone puts their hand up for Dele Alli, don't they? So we've got that appointment there. So the directors of football, the football managers, those appointments, it's not a very good track record, and that is on Teflon Dan. Okay, so that's that side of thing. On the financial side of thing, ENIC bought Tottenham in 2000. They paid Sugar, I think, an initial 30-odd million and another 40 million later on. Daniel Levy got 30% ownership in ENIC, which owns the club. So to me, and I know a little bit more about this than some people and a lot less about this than other people, okay, ENIC, it's a private equity deal. So Levy comes into a business, he gets 30%, he then ratchets up the value of the club over a long-term investment. They sell out, he walks off with a hell of a lot of money, and so does Joe Lewis. That's the ENIC model, okay? They've got Wetherspoons pubs, they've got Levy's family, Mr. Byright, which, you know, all your great shopping shell suits from the 80s, okay? We are nothing more than an urban redevelopment project. He's come in, he's regenerated the area. Let's not forget, he wanted to move us to Stratford. Okay,
no, he did. But go on.
Well,
anyway.
but this is the thing that Levy apologists.
I've waited about 8 minutes so far.
Okay, well let me just finish.
I'm just waiting for you to continue your rant because I'm not oppositional to actually everything you've said. Just let's be really clear, and I'm sure HG wouldn't be either. Without speaking for HG, which I've done before, and it ended very badly. But I'm just going to let you finish. But if you could make your point a little bit more succinct, that would be wonderful.
Okay, that's not a problem. So I'll just finish off with this. In my opinion, my humble opinion about you guys and a lot of other people in the cheese room, and I don't buy into this anti-ENIC, pro-ENIC. It's actually a discussion. We're talking about it and we've all got views. So that's not, and I'm not interested in that nonsense. But you guys, I think, probably started going during the Sugar years, okay? And I started going when we got relegated, and then Ozzy and Ricky came. And from 81 to 87, we were at Wembley. We played attacking football. We signed good players. It was amazing to be there, and I was honoured and privileged. Hoddle, waddle, the lot. I went through the Sugar years with you, and my God, that was awful. But every time that we've come close to doing something with Redknapp, with Pochettino, they're not interested in investing. And I think the business model is get us into 4th place, keep the Champions League money coming, and they will sell the club for a lot of money. Thank you. That's it, and good night.
Well, there you might need to have some work to do in a minute. Well, we've got some questions for you.
Yeah.
HG, I mean, there was quite a lot there, and it's fair to say that Dave is very passionate about it. We've obviously had you on the podcast before. If you've not checked it out, it's on Spotify, Apple Music, and all good platforms. The Choose Your Own podcast. HG, where do you start unraveling that?
Well, I have to say I agree with a lot of it, and maybe some of it I didn't notice beforehand. Like I think that when it comes to Levy being a football man, he's not. Right? I mean, it's clear that he doesn't know football. He doesn't understand what makes a team work. He doesn't understand. Like he's been the boss. Like he's never had to work for someone else really. So, like I think. Levy is probably thinking, I want someone with a track record who has proven to be successful at this thing I don't understand, which is why he went for the people like Van Gaal, which is why he went for Mourinho, which is why he's been desperate to get people that have won stuff. Probably why he ended up going towards Conte, even though Hitchin didn't really have him on his shortlist. Like, and I get that. Like, if you don't know football, that's probably what you're going to do. I also understand that, yeah, like they are in this. It's an investment company. They are in this to make money. And from a fan's point of view, yeah, I think the biggest difference here is that you're right, David. He lived through the 80s. I didn't. Right, I didn't go to my first Spurs game until
I'm not that old, despite
89. I think was when I first went with my mum. So I don't remember the attacking football. I don't remember the hoddle and waddle. Those things weren't part of my life. I remember the players. I remember pretending to be them on the playground, but I didn't go to the games. So it is a big thing. But I think that for those of us that really did start going in the 90s, and I had a season ticket from 92 to 96. I remember going to Liverpool for the FA Cup quarter final. That was probably the highlight of those 4 years for me. I don't know. Like we are better now than we were. Like even if I'm talking about the last season, how bad we are, we're in a much better position to challenge than we have been for most of my life. Because as soon as the Champions League money started distorting things so much, we were on the outs. The whole big five of my childhood was a big four for a very long time, and the only people that ever really got in were Chelsea and Man City, and they paid to do it. Spurs haven't done that, maybe because of the owners, but it's a massive difference. So, like I understand that it's good for Spurs. It's good for Spurs if we win. It's good for the fans. It's also good for Levy if we win because it would increase the brand and increase the value and all the rest of it. And that's what I want.
I'm just going to cut in there for 1 second, HG. This is the point that I suppose wrangles me slightly. People think that Levy's got a lack of ambition. He hasn't. He appointed Mourinho, the second most successful manager of all time. It didn't work out. Every time he's made a record signing, it's been an absolute fucking disaster. I don't think he lacks ambition because I genuinely think that he wants the club to succeed. What he lacks, in my view, is sound decision making because he's not a football man.
On the business side of things, none of us can argue really. Like we went from a revenue of 170 million 5 or 6 years ago to 400 now. Like I understand revenue's gone up for everyone, but a lot of that is because we do have this stadium. Yes, the debt that comes with it, but we are in.
The best of it is we haven't actually seen the full year of the stadium bringing in the revenue that he says every penny is going to be reinvested back into the team of.
Yeah, you either have a sugar daddy who does what Chelsea have done, or you try to become like Liverpool and Man United, who basically live through their own means. Like the Glazers don't invest any money into the club, yet they're about to drop 80 million quid on Jadon Sancho. Like, I think that's really what Levy wants to see. He wants to see, like, he's building the hotel, not for you and me, but for the people that are flying from around the world. Because
sometimes.
No, but they want to go and see a game, and yeah, if you can do a package deal where they stay at the hotel right by it, and you throw in a tour of the ground, like I understand for all of us that have grown up, within 2 hours of the ground or more in Caller's case maybe, that's not interesting to us. Like we want what's going on the pitch. I don't really care if I'm going to buy a chicken and balti pie or because I'm still 14. I eat before I go in the ground. I'm not interested in any of that. But when it comes to revenue, like people will do that. Like if I go to New York and I have the chance to see a New York Giants game or whatever, and tickets are $150, $200, this is my one chance of doing it, so I may well pay it. I think that is a massive part of Levy's thing, and like that's going to affect the atmosphere in the stadium, because like if you're not a fan, you're just there to witness the game and like experience everything. And I don't want the fans to experience it. I want the fans to be it. Like we are part of it, and that is probably what's gonna be lost if we're getting 15, 20,000 tourists every game. But I do think that when it comes to the financial side of things, no one can really argue with Levy about increasing the revenue of club. How we spent that money, we can argue. But then we've just said that Levy is not a football person. So it's again about finding the right people to do it. And because I don't think Levy is a particularly good people person at all. He doesn't know what makes things tick. He just knows what he's good at. And he thinks that what he's good at will be good for everyone. If you find a football person that's like Levy, then suddenly he will be great. And it doesn't work that way. Like scouting football players isn't about statistics only. It isn't about whether they can do it on a wet Tuesday night in Stoke or whether they were really good in a crappy Fiorentina team or whatever. Like you're buying to a plan. Most of my life, Spurs have never bought to a plan. We've just bought big names in the hope that they were going to turn things around. And I think that's our biggest problem. Like if we were in a position to buy big names, great, but they have to fit the system. They have to fit what we want to do. And we haven't ever really had, outside of those few years with Pochettino, when we didn't buy anyone, a particular plan in mind. I feel like a lot of our record signings have literally just been because they were good players the season before, and we didn't really think about how we were going to use them.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to pick up this point from Jonathan. He doesn't follow through with ambition and back the various managers. That's a very Twitter-esque, trendy comment. Back the manager with that. It's a bit wishy-washy. It doesn't really mean anything. Mourinho is pointless appointing him unless you buy the players needed. Now, I just want to pick up on a couple of points out of that. Back the manager. Okay, what is backing the manager? Is it giving them 100 suitcases of £1 million and saying, go and sign who you like? Because actually we've spent 250 million quid on players in the last couple of years, last 2 or 3 years. So I would argue that managers have been backed, if I'm being really honest. And I would also say that and by the way, this makes it sound like I'm pro-Levy and I'm pro-ENIC, and I'm neither. I'm genuinely neither. People think that I like to be a little bit level. So I like to balance. I like to see it on both sides. Would I like to see Daniel Levy dropping £100 million on Cristiano Ronaldo for Tottenham? Absolutely. But I also take the view that is that a realistic thing to expect of the company, knowing how much the club is in debt, who owns the club and the fact they don't spend any money and all the rest of it. So I like to just keep it real and balanced. Just for the record, that's my personal brand, and I don't want anyone thinking that I am pro Levy. But I would say
anyway, caller, they will anyway.
They will anyway. But I'm going to make my point. I do think Mourinho is back, but I do think the epidemic had a massive hit on what he probably could have spent if the stadium was at full capacity, if Guns N' Roses had played last summer, if AJ had the boxing last summer. All those other revenue generating activities are to put money back into the club to make the club. And let's be clear, it is absolutely a business. I completely understand that Daniel Levy is there to make money for ENIC. I understand that. But you increase the value of the business by being successful. And that's basically what's happened over the last 10 years, whether you like it or not, whether you want to call top four success or not. Financially, it is success. And globally, having superstars like Son and Kane playing for you, that's also success. That builds your brand, particularly in the Far East, obviously, in the case of Son. So what I would say is they have, in the last couple of years, he has put his money where his mouth is. It just hasn't worked out very well, has it? And the problem is, I think we've bought players that, like Tommy Ndombele, record signing, 65 million. Every club in Europe wanted Ndombele when we signed him. Liverpool wanted him. United wanted him. City were rumoured to be interested in him as well. And you can see why, because he's a terrifically talented player, but he hasn't worked out well. And every time you go through history and Daniel Levy has spent big on a player, unfortunately for us, it hasn't worked out well. And that doesn't mean it won't work out well in the future, but we can't afford to buy duds. That's the problem. We haven't got that sugar daddy. 101 people watching us right now. Please do subscribe and like, and absolutely stay up to date with all the Cheese Room stuff. HG, what do you think of my point? I'm just going to go and get another drink.
Okay.
Between the two of you, just hold the show up till I get back, and when I come back, there'll be a torrent of abuse there on the right hand side for me. I'm absolutely certain.
Like you talked about Levy, or you talked about Spurs not having a sugar daddy. No, you're right. We don't. We have a daddy, right? Someone who looks after the wallet and says what we can and can't afford. That's it. I do agree with a lot of what everyone said tonight. Weirdly, it's about making the right decisions in the right areas. If you pick, like you look at track records, right? You look at the Norwich sporting director, went there from Huddersfield, did a good job at Huddersfield, then went to Norwich, has done a pretty good job at Norwich, can clearly spot a player and is working within with the parameters that they've set, and they're getting better. You saw it with Burnley. They came up, went back down, came back up again, and they've stuck around. Norwich could easily do that because they've got decent. They've got very good football people in charge of that club. You've got a good coach who knows what he wants to do and is given the freedom to do it. Spurs haven't had that. As Davo pointed out, like our directors of football have been pretty shoddy. People that maybe we haven't wanted, and like they just haven't worked out. I mean, it's I mean, we look to the comment that we just got here from Jonathan Porter, right? You don't buy Doherty when the plan is to play a back four. Weirdly enough, Jonathan, I don't think the plan was to play with a back four, or certainly not in a flat back four that we saw Spurs play. It was always to be, for Doherty to do what Aurier did and spend most of his time attacking. We then went and bought Reggie on, and the plan went out the window. But it's just there's no joined up thinking anywhere within Spurs. I don't know what you think, Davo.
There's a couple of points I just want to come back on, and I promise I won't rant because you guys got to go to bed. But
I'm good. I'm happy.
In terms of the shrewd businessman, where's the naming rights on the stadium? Okay, I mean, the optimum time to do a naming rights deal was when we got to the Champions League final. And in the from the Champions League final to getting spanked at home by Bayern Munich what's that? That's about 4 or 5 months. Yeah, so that's optimum time to get naming rights, and that would have got money into the squad and pay down that debt. So that's number one. Shrewd businessman. Everyone says that ENIC, and it's been said on here, ENIC don't take money out of the club. Daniel Levy was the highest paid chairman in the Premier League for a number of years. He paid himself a £3.5 million bonus for the completion of the stadium, which was late and over budget. His regards for the fans, as Richard Scudamore reported, when they brought in the £30 away ticket cap, there's one chairman who rang up and complained. Any prizes for guessing? Okay. And then I'm going to give you a very hackneyed metaphor or whatever here, is that Irving Scholar was chairman of Tottenham. And as I said, that was the time where Gary Lineker was available. We bought him, Chrissy Waddle, all of that. Irving Scholar was a passionate man, interfered too much on the playing side of things. He got into trouble around 1991 when there was a global recession. Interest rates were high. When he tried to diversify the Tottenham business, you remember the Hummel yellow things? He bought that. There was a ticket agency, all these kind of things. I think even Southampton wrote in their match day program that Hummel supplying the kit from Tottenham, which they owned, hadn't turned up. We were in a lot of trouble. As I said, I don't think the bank would have foreclosed. And what's ENIC doing now? They're looking to diversify the business away from football. No one could have foreseen a global pandemic. I'm not blaming Levy for COVID.
I mean, some people probably think that COVID probably is Levy's fault,
Yeah, there's a whole load of conspiracy theories about COVID, and we're not the kind of YouTube channel to get into that. But even I cannot blame Daniel Levy for COVID. But the point is he's diversifying the business away from the core thing, which is football, and we've got a bit of problems around that at the moment financially. And the other thing I want to just mention as well is that it may well be in 5 years' time that Tottenham is not the core business at that site, because if he wins an NFL franchise, and the NFL franchise comes in and he got his retractable pitch going backwards and forwards and all that kind of stuff, and the cheerleaders coming on, then you have a situation that if someone comes to Daniel and says, oh, you need to spend X to improve the infrastructure to support the NFL, the franchise coming in, or you need to spend Y on finally replacing Jeremy Dyer's brother, what's he going to do?
Let me pause you there, Dave, because HG happens to be a bit of an American football expert. So is it in that he knows the rules and I don't? Is it likely, HG, that we're going to see a franchise in the UK, and I guess Spurs would be in pole position to get that?
Yeah, it's the only position to get that. I think the NFL have made it clear that they'd like to have a franchise in the UK. They want to get more money into their league. I think we've seen with all the games they've had in the last 10 years, people fly from all over Europe to watch those games in London, whether it was at Wembley or at Twickenham. My own team played at Twickenham when they came over. And Spurs is the only stadium that has the facilities to do what needs to be done. I think there's no doubt that the NFL would like to have a franchise in London. I don't know how it would work when it comes to fixtures or anything, but I'm sure the NFL would find a way for it to work. You have to remember that the NFL would play 8 home games a season at Spurs, so it just means that when we're not at home, I mean, I understand that in theory we could play on the Saturday and they could play on the Sunday. That's not going to happen. It would be opposite weekends, but it is about creating revenue for the business, and I would like to think that Levy is going to look at all that revenue coming in and make it available for Spurs. It's weird. The price of the club is going to get so astronomical soon that I'm not sure who's going to want to buy it. Because they can't improve anything. Then whoever the new owner is going to be the Glazers, who will take money out of Tottenham. That Tottenham would become the money making machine, and they would just take 30, 50 million of revenue every year of profit and be like, great, we're laughing. But even then, I mean, that's if you're paying over 2.5 billion for something. 50 million a year, it'll take you a long time to get your money back. So it is weird, but I do want to believe, and I do believe that whatever revenue that comes into Spurs, whether it's through NFL or concerts or whatever, will go back into the club, and the club can and hopefully spend that money on players. I don't think clearly it's never been Levy's goal to spend their own money to make Spurs better. And when he tried, which was for most of the 2000s, it didn't work. It was only when, I think when Redknapp came in and we were desperate for players, he went out and spent a lot of money that winter transfer window. And since then, we've lived within our means. And whatever we've sold, we've reinvested. And when Levy came out and said that, that the building of the new stadium was not going to affect transfers, well, he was right, because we haven't spent more than we brought in. Nothing has changed in that respect. You just have to understand how his brain is thinking. A lot of Spurs fans will hear that and think, great, we're going to be spending money, when that was never the intention from what he said. The NFL is likely to come to Europe, and London is the first and pretty much only choice. I've heard rumors of them going to Germany because it's really popular there, but no, London has the stadium with the facilities. And from the 2 games that they've played at the stadium so far, they looked fantastic. All of my friends that have been to those games said that, yeah, okay, the stadium's not easy to get to, but it was a better experience than Wembley. It felt more like you were at an American football game rather than a game that's in a stadium, just a random stadium. It worked better. We all know that it's the atmosphere, the acoustics in the stadium are great. You can really create something. Now, yeah, it might take 5 years for Spurs to see that money and then invest it in the team. I don't know, but I do believe deep down that any revenue that's coming in, a lot of it will go to Spurs. I don't think Levy is going to Well, again, he could, I suppose. He could. I mean, he could. Like, if the revenue gets up to 500 million a year without Champions League, right, which it could easily do in the next 5 to 10 years, and he decides, you know what, we're only going to spend 450 million on the things that we need for the team. It's still a lot more than what we're spending now. It would be akin to what Man City are spending now. We might be paying 250 grand a week for players. It's you just don't know. But I think based on what I've seen, Levy is great at increasing revenue. We tend to spend the revenue when it comes in, but we spend it badly because the people that he employs are not football people, and he doesn't really know what a football person looks like.
I mean, you do know that the net spend of the last 5 years is we're 17th in the Premier League. Yeah. Mike Ashley has spent more on Tottenham than ENIC. Okay, so that I think that's the reality of the situation. That I'm hoping that we open up against when Spurs used to have boxing fights on at White Hart Lane in the 80s. They used to bring the fighters out at half time. So I really want to see Slash and Axel come out at half time and be interviewed by Paul Coy. I think that'd be great.
I mean, it's pretty desperate, isn't it? When we opened the stadium, we had we didn't get Pavarotti. We had the Go Compare man, singing at the stadium. Who is a season ticket holder? I'm pretty sure Levy just upgraded his seat and said, "Go on, give us a number."
Sorry, do you think with the naming rights that maybe Levy was waiting for everything to actually be in place?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Like the pandemic has fucked Tottenham really at the wrong moment. It couldn't have come at a worse time. Spurs. I'm quite convinced those naming rights. He will be out for a world record naming rights number for the best stadium in the world. You can absolutely understand why, because it is a fantastic arena. But now no one's got any money. No one's going to be spending any money. So unless there's some huge boom all of a sudden afterwards, he's going to have to settle for less or try and do a shorter term contract than he would have done. So I think it's interesting times, but it is still the ace up the sleeve at the moment financially for Spurs. I mean, we talk about the debt, Dave. It's leveraged over about 50 years. The stadium payments are about 6 million quid a year or something ridiculous. And then there's balloons at various points in the future. So is the stadium bankrupting us right now? Absolutely not. The Bank of England loan, we had 200 million quid cash in hand. We could have paid that back. If you look at the latest series of accounts, we absolutely could have paid that back without borrowing further with this debt package that's just been ballooned through. But if you look at what it does, it just gives us more cash in the here and now. So
I've thought of a fantastic way to raise more revenue for Spurs. If we've got 6 million quid that we need to pay to the bank every year, you could have a phone in, like £1 a go. Which Deadwood player would you like to see sold this summer? It would be incredible. We'd make a fortune. Like I'd be spending £1 every week to get rid of Lamella. That money would roll in, absolutely roll in. And then, we're paying off the debt, and we're not even doing anything to do it. Levy's going to love that idea.
I'm gonna just break away. We're gonna come back to some more comments in a second. I've got another friend watching. I've got more than one friend, which is amazing, isn't it? Mark Hastings is watching with his boys, so shout out to you, Mark. And unfortunately he's a West Bromwich Albion supporter, and they've had a new manager today, haven't they? Ismail. You aware of Ismail HG? And his question to me, I don't take requests, but he's a very, very good friend. So I said I would ask you guys, what do you think of Ismail? Will they get automatic promotion? And his follow-on question is a fair one. Will Nuno bring anyone with him to Spurs from Wolves? So I'll tell you what, HG, you take the first bit about
all right,
the new manager, about Ismail, and then I'll come to you, Dave. You can have a minute to think about it.
Valerian Ismail, look at his track record. He was manager here in Austria for a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. He took Lask to they played Man United in the Europa League. Was it round of 16 or something? He did a really good job there. He went to Barnsley. He's only been there a season and took them to the playoffs. It was just, I think it was just the previous year they got to the. They were almost relegated, and he came in for 12 months. They got to the playoffs. I think if I'm a West Brom fan, I'm looking at that thinking he knows what he's doing. It may not be exciting football. It's pretty much high press, really intense running, But yeah, you'd have to think he's got a really good chance of getting West Brom promoted. So I think it's a good hire for them.
I tell you what, HG, I'll come. I'm going to record that little section, and then at the end of the season, see where they finished and come back to you. Dave, any follow on from Wolves? So, is there anyone you'd want to bring to Spurs?
Okay, leaving aside, I think he's got 3 or 4 years left in his contract. Connor Cody, I think would be good. He's a leader. He's obviously been improved by Nuno, so I'd like to see him. If we could swap him, I think if we did a deal with Wolves and the whole Jorge Mendes link, so we could offer them Sanchez, Jeremy's brother, Lamela, Winks, and 10 million. That should do the trick on that one. I think Traore would be an entertaining watch. He does remind me of those. Do you remember the kids when we were a kid? You had a Weeble, the Weebles wobble, and they all fall down. You're probably too young. Sorry, but
I don't remember that, no.
No, well, that's
that
my
before
age.
computers were invented, Dave.
That's before XG was invented. So I'd like to see Traore come in. I think he would be good. I'd like to see Connor Cody. I think if we got those 2 in, that would be valuable additions to the squad. And just go back to HG's point about rate the fundraiser. There's not enough telephone lines in the world that they could set up for us to ring up and say who they should get rid of.
Wow. You'd have all these foreigner fans being like, all these fans of other teams phoning in. Levy would love it. He'd absolutely love it. If you vote for Kane, clearly you he's not going to go. But yeah, by all means, spend your money and help Spurs decide who they need to sell each summer. Would be a great money spinner.
Neves in the midfield would be a massive upgrade to Winks and Sissoko. I've got to be honest, Neves in the midfield would be a big upgrade all round. I think he's a terrific player, but I mean, I'd be a big upgrade to Winks and Sissoko, let's be honest.
2 traffic cones would be a massive upgrade on Winks and Sissoko.
Neves, HG, rate Neves?
I do rate him. He didn't have a great season last year, I don't think. He's usually good at scoring 4 or 5 rockets a season. I don't remember him doing that too much last year. But I think the question is, where does he fit then, right? Like, if you are going to play 3 at the back, there are 2 in midfield, Højbjerg, Skip, Dombele. That's 3 of the 4. Do you really want Neves to be the 4th? He's obviously a good passer of the ball. But yeah, I worry. I think I'd want someone a bit more physical in midfield to be that role. But he's clearly a good player. And I think Wolves want 35 million for him this summer. We could spend that money probably worse. I don't necessarily want Neves, but he is a good player for sure, and he's better than Winks and Sissoko easily.
Well, I mean, look, like I said, me and you would be a better midfield tandem than those 2 pillocks. I'm going to go to some more controversial comments because I like those. Marco, we've been spoon-fed lies and conned by the mob. We sacked Poch to end up like this. Shameful. HG, should we have sacked Poch?
Yes. Yes. Like, just because life got worse afterwards doesn't mean it was a bad decision to sack him in the first place. 6 wins in 24 league games. We were going nowhere and we were doing it very slowly. Everything we did was really slowly in that last 12 months under Poch. Like, it sucks to say, but we weren't improving under Poch. We'd seen a regular kind of movement downwards. We got the Champions League final run, which was amazing, and we loved watching it. But let's not forget that Pochettino, we weren't getting better under him. We were getting worse. He changed the style of play. He was using Lucas as a central striker. No, I'm sorry. If Pochettino went back to a high press, great, bring him back. But if he doesn't, he can stay where he is because he did deserve to be fired. And the fact that Mourinho was awful doesn't change the fact that Pochettino deserved to be fired.
Poch, I think, in his last full season, getting to the Champions League final papered over a lot of cracks. But I want to put it in context. That summer beforehand, we had 13 players involved in the semi-final of the stages of the World Cup. Now, they weren't all on the pitch, but they were all involved, and they're still focused mentally, physically for a semi-final of the World Cup. Okay, that was over the transfer windows. We didn't buy anyone. So when you play with a high press and the double training sessions and the physical intensity, you need to constantly top up and replace that squad, which we didn't do. Paul Miller on another pod, which I won't mention, said that one of the reasons
you
why.
can mention it, Dave. You can mention it.
Okay, the Spurs show, which is for older farts like me. I love my cheese room, but I also love the old fart Spurs show as well. So he said on there that one of the reasons why we got this amazing debt facility that Caller that you love is because
I don't love it. I don't love it. I just told you facts about the way it's leveraged. It's not a bad way of taking on debt. That's all.
If you had to choose the debt facility or Harry Winks to play in the midfield, who would you choose? Anyway,
debt facility every
time, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why we didn't spend any money over 2 to 3 windows was just to show that our revenue income was better. We hadn't spent more money on players. That's what Paul Miller was saying, and he thinks he's in the know, and et cetera, et cetera. So look at Poch from that point of view of Poch. He went into that season where the players were tired, a lot of World Cup involvement. We didn't improve the squad. But I always go back to Poch and say he never got us over the line in the big games. The big game management wasn't there. Mourinho schooled him in that FA Cup semi-final. Playing Son as a left wing back. Remember the penalty he gave away?
I'll never forget it.
No, I won't either at 2:00 in the morning, wherever I was living at the time. And then the final thing was, before the biggest game in the club's history, you turn around and you say, if we win, I'm off. Now, did Churchill before D-Day go, if we win this one, I'm on my way. I'm going to go and smoke my cigar somewhere else. No, he didn't. By that stage,
that's
the game
a bad
was up.
example, Dave, because Churchill was a liberal and a conservative at various points in his political career. He flip-flopped more times than Seb Short. So,
So, to sum up Poch, and I was watching a bit of him on YouTube the other day. He was old clips. He was fielding questions from kids. He was like a breath of fresh air. The energy that he brought, and I sat back and went, remember him? It was great for a while, and we had that great team in the final season at White Hart Lane. Dembele Wanyama, he was great. But we didn't support him back to that point, and by the end, he should have been sacked because the game was up.
Okay, that's cool.
Very ranty. Sorry.
That's all right. We like that. Alex Banstead says, watch Matt Hayes. Matt is a good friend of the cheese room, so I'm sure I will absolutely return the favour and pimp his channel. Do get over there and watch it. He has some really good stuff. He's unsure he'll be off a job and now Levy resisting Potter, Ten Hag and approaching Gerrard. I mean, if you actually work that out, Potter, Ten Hag and approaching Gerrard, it's almost a song.
Almost almost a very bad song. Yeah,
like if someone like me who isn't tone deaf could sing it, it could be a song. I'm just saying that. Matt's a good guy. We're not saying that that Nuno will get the job. We're saying he's the favourite to get the job and talking about it. Where do you see Lo Celso fitting in next year, Dave?
I'm really hoping
Hopefully an injured. That's my contribution. There you go.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that Celso doesn't become Lamella Mark II with tearing his hamstring in a warm up to be in the quarterfinals against Man City. The first season of Celso, which he was obviously got injured, I was quite excited by him. I remember that turn he did and that run at Southampton, setting up the goal. He looked like a little bit of a mixture of Modric. He looked like he had a pass in him. I'm very concerned about his injury record. This season is a massive season for him and Ndombele. So I like him, but we want to see consistency and we want to see him turning games and dominating games. That's what we want. If by the end of this year and the third year of his contract with 2 to go, I think, if he doesn't make it, he's got to go or offer him a new contract. And I'll chuck in Ndombele. I'd like to see the man complete 90 minutes of football and be fit. If I hear that he's not fit at the start of the season, he's had the whole summer off. And we need him to, again, we've got to work out how Ndombele and Lo Celso can play in the same midfield, and can they?
You've given us 2 for 1 there, Dave. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
All I want from those two, I mean, if you think about it, they've been at the club for 2 seasons, and for most of that time, they've played defensive football under Mourinho. If they've played at all, they've been playing in their own half. Neither one of them have any pace. They're looking, I mean, there's also is very one-footed, right? Like Lamella is. If you push him onto his right foot, he can't even play the passes that you want him to do. We're pretty easy to play against. So if we do play more on the front foot and we play in the opponent's halves, then I think that both Ndombele and Lo Celso will look better. But we have to do that. Like, it's really tough for players to look good if they're doing something in an area of the field where they shouldn't be. Just like Son was not a left wing back Like Dombele and Lo Celso are not deep-lying, counter-attacking midfielders. They're just not.
This one. Do you think Anderson has pre-signed for Tottenham? And talk about Huels Condé will sign. Any intel on that, HG?
Look, I don't think Anderson has pre-signed for Tottenham because he can't. I mean, it's between Spurs and Lyon whether he wants to or whether he can. But I think that Anderson wants to join Spurs. I mean, I think that he obviously likes life in London. Spurs have 1 or 2 spots available at centre half. So I think for Anderson, he gets to play with Højbjerg. He'll have links with the club. So I can see that one happening. I don't see us buying Jules Koundé because I think Sevilla will want too much money, and I don't think we'll be paying 60 million quid for a defender. I don't think we should either, if I'm honest. I think we've got other areas. I'd rather buy 4 or 5 players at 30 million than 2 players at 60 to 80. It's just we need a bit more depth. I mean, I don't think we're going to spend that amount of money, but that's where I think that we'll be going. So Anderson is probably likely, but Koundé, no, I can't see it.
What about Ben White? Arsenal are in for him for 50 million. Okay. Yeah. And at least we can offer Ben some lovely European football. And at 50 million quid, I still reckon you could raise money with Winks and Dyer or Sanchez, because don't forget, you got Skip coming back in. He replaces Winks, so that's the English thing in the squad, the quota. Yeah. And we're not spending money there. And then the money that we get for Winks, let's say 20 to 30 million, chuck in Jeremy's brother or Sanchez. I reckon you raise that money for Ben White. So I'd look at him. Anderson looked good last year. My centre backs for the year would be Rodon, Tanganga should play at centre back.
I agree with that.
HG's Toby +1 wedding invite, and another, and that's 4.
I would definitely agree that the 3 you've said that are already at Spurs. Ben White, the only thing with Ben White is there's a lot of people jumping to conclusions after watching him play for England for a game. Because and let's be honest about that. That is the truth. So he did have a good game for England, but Brighton have shipped a lot of goals this season. I don't think it's the second coming. He looks a decent player, but I would say they're certainly overpaying at 50 million quid. HG, I know you want to say something.
Yeah. I just think Ben White. I'm actually surprised he's even interested in going to Arsenal. If I'm honest.
Yes, HG.
Yeah, and that's not to say clearly Arsenal were a bigger club than Brighton, but he's not going to make another big move within England, right? And I don't think Arsenal should be the top destination for any young English defender. So I would have played another year at Brighton if I was him, and I think that other teams will come in for him. Like Liverpool are going to need a centre half at some point because they can't have 2 or 3 that stay fit. I'm surprised that he seems so keen to want to go to Arsenal. I can only assume that he's perhaps an Arsenal fan, and that's what that's where he wants to play. But I don't see that Arsenal team being much better than they were this season. I really don't. So it surprises me.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to wrap there, gents. We've done nearly an hour and a half, and I'm conscious Dave needs his Cheerios for breakfast. And HG needs some sleep because you're an hour ahead of me. It's now half midnight there in Austria, on the eve of your biggest ever national game, would you say?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Austria is absolutely pumped for tomorrow night. Italy, it's a massive game. And it's kind of cool that it's at Wembley because I feel like I've got a link to it now. But Austria haven't played a football game like this in 40 years. As I said before on previous pods, it's a skiing country. It's not a football country. But it's front page news every day since it was decided they were playing Italy. It's a big deal. And obviously, Austria shares a border with Italy too. So it's a bit of local rivalry. But I don't expect them to go through, but we'll have fun watching it for sure.
Can I just say a couple of things to finish off on a personal note? Happy birthday, Tom and Damien, and also just to Neo 1972. Your joke about the Swedish flat pack 4 was a fantastic joke, and I loved it hugely. I love it. It's hilarious.
He's been talking about this pre-show. He wanted to talk to Neo about the flat pack 4.
Brilliant.
Very good. Well, look, if it's the first time watching the Choose Room, please do like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are putting out another show tomorrow night, so please tune back in for that. And that will be a review of the Euros, Wales and Austria, with huge matches tomorrow. So please do come back to us from that. HG, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Put all your money on Germany to beat England. That's the last thing I'm going to say. But come on, Denmark and Italy, Austria for tomorrow.
Don't be that guy. Why would you do that?
Because if you're gonna waste your money betting, right, and it is a mugs game, Germany would probably be quite a good bet, frankly, because they've got to play England. So yeah, why not? Why not? And if you lose the
I'm
money,
sorry,
you're happy because
viewers.
England have gone through.
I'm sorry, viewers. So many of you on, and he does that. And Dave, thanks for joining us, mate. And hopefully you'll be back on soon.
Well, I'm going to go out the road and test out my XG trying to get in the supermarket. So it's been a pleasure to be on. And one final thing to point out, caller, every time you plaster the face of the managerial person, and there's a stream about it, it doesn't happen. So this could every time.
Well, I saw the no to Nuno, and I thought I'd better do my bit, So I put a stream out. Says Nuno's going to get it. So there you go.
It's been a pleasure to be on, and hopefully be on again soon.
All right. Till next time. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.